Welcome to another edition of the Backyard Professor videos. This is a very special, happy day for me personally as the Backyard Professor, as a student of the Book of Abraham and the Book of Abraham facsimiles, and as a student of the LDS scriptures and a student of the Egyptian religion and ancient history and culture. Today is an absolute milestone for me personally. I have a very spectacular piece of information I'm going to share with you on the Book of Abraham in these videos. We have finally had a breakthrough, and it's a seriously good one. It is a seriously good one. In the publication, Egypt and Beyond, Essays Presented to Leonard H. Lesko, who is another very fabulous Egyptologist. I've had occasion to read some of his research, and he's very good. Upon his retirement from the Wilbur Chair of Egyptology at Brown University, June 2005. This was edited by Stephen E. Thompson, Peter der Monulian, the Department of Egyptology and Ancient Western Asian Studies, Brown University, in 2008, just last year. This is the latest, most current Egyptological analysis of the ancient Egyptian Book of Breathing, the Mormon Book of Abraham, and the development of Egyptology in America by the very well-known and very good Egyptologist Lanny Bell. He is a non-Mormon Egyptologist, and he has finally, to Lanny Bell goes the credit, to finally destroying the anti-Mormons' very favorite hero against the Book of Abraham, Charles Larson, who is not an Egyptologist. Let's make one thing perfectly clear. Charles Larson, with his anti-Mormon book, By His Own Hand Upon Papyrus, the very famous anti-Mormon book that was basically financed by an anti-Mormon ministry who claims to be Christian, Lanny Bell destroys Charles Larson's reconstruction of facsimile number 1. Now, John Gee already destroyed him way back when in the Farms Review of Books in the 1990s. And of course, John Gee being an LDS Egyptologist, he was promptly ignored. But you can't ignore Lanny Bell. Lanny Bell has done us all a favor. Our happy day has arrived. We now have a non-Mormon Egyptologist who in print admits that Joseph Smith was correct in something. The critics who argue that Joseph Smith got nothing right are officially outdated. Your nightmare begins now. To the anti-Mormon critics who claim that no Egyptologist agrees with Joseph Smith, your day of crowing is over. We now have an Egyptologist who agrees with Joseph Smith on something. He is not 100% wrong. Now, this doesn't mean Lanny Bell agrees with everything in the Book of Abraham and totally agrees with Joseph Smith. So don't get stupid on me and start misquoting me or contacting Lanny Bell saying some Mormons are starting to say you completely agree with Joseph Smith. He doesn't. Let's keep that clear also. But he at least properly and realistically gives Joseph Smith credit where credit's due. And that's all we have ever asked for. John Gee has been forging ahead in numerous studies discussing the hypocephalus, its significance, what types of hypocephali there are, what they mean, and so on and so forth. Even though he's an LDS Egyptologist and he is completely ignored, that doesn't change the fact that we are coming to better grips with these issues. Lanny Bell comes to grips with a few issues. He shows how Charles Larson is absolutely incorrect. Charles Larson, in his book, claims that he was suspicious of some of Joseph Smith's restorations to facsimile number 1. Charles Larson also claims in his book that he reconstructed facsimile number 1 with 2 birds, a man laying on the couch with an erect phallus, and Anubis in front of him. And he says this was done by a professional Egyptologist. He never named names. We don't know who that Egyptologist was. No Egyptologist has come forth and taken the credit, which is a really good thing, because when Lanny Bell explores this, he shows how Charles Larson's reconstruction of facsimile number 1 is false. Charles Larson is wrong. He's suspicious of some of Joseph Smith's restoration concepts in the facsimiles, but he ignores the Egyptian mannerisms. Lanny Bell shows what these are. The first aspect that is critical to understand from Lanny Bell's point of view, and which, of course, Hugh Nibley has already elaborated on 40 years ago. No one paid attention to him, but he was right. John Gee has been saying this now for 2 decades. Everyone's ignoring him because he's an LDS Egyptologist, but John Gee is correct. So, are you going to listen to a non-Mormon Egyptologist, Lanny Bell? Here is what the man says. Page 22. He says, the few vignettes accompanying the Book of Breathing texts are not standardized, but they display great variation. The pictures, there is no standard way to illustrate the pictures. So why is Charles Larson so suspicious that Joseph Smith's hypocephalus or his facsimile number 1 differs from other Egyptian prints? It's a ludicrous stance because there's no standardized picture. That's the first thing I want to make crystal clear we understand from the Egyptological point of view. The second item that I thought was extremely interesting on page 23 in his footnote, page 21. I've said this for 20 years, and I'm virtually told I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not an Egyptologist. I don't know. Okay, I've never claimed to be an Egyptologist. Neither has Charles Larson, by the way. I had someone tell me at the fair conference that Charles Larson, the professional Egyptologist, has proven Joseph Smith had nothing but mistakes in all of the facsimiles. That's false. Lanny Bell disagrees with that. And he's the Egyptologist. Here's what he says, footnote 21. The deceased on the bier is not Osiris. Any of you who've kept track of this argument knows the thunderclap that you just heard. We've been told that it can't be Abraham, you stupid Mormons, because it is Osiris. That's not what Lanny Bell says. Lanny Bell says, the deceased on the bier is not Osiris the god, but the Osiris in N. That is, the Horus. The dead were identified with Osiris, and the rites that had resurrected the god were also efficacious in the resurrection of deceased humans who had access to them. He's quoting the Egyptologist Goyen. This is not Osiris. It is the dead person becoming an Osiris, and it is not a mummy. It is a non-mummified person being resurrected. And Lanny Bell has some fabulous discussion on that point of view. There are those critics who continue using the Reverend Spalding's discussion in 1912 against the Book of Abraham with 8 of the world's foremost Egyptologists, and they weren't.